Hey everyone, my name is Wedge. There's no time for introductions. Today's spoilers are split up into two videos because there are just too many of them. So here's part 1. You can expect part 2 later today. What a way to start spoilers. Astral Cornucopia is XXX, how you doing, for an artifact. It enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it. To avoid confusion, this means that if you spend 3 mana on it, X equals 1, 6 mana, X equals 2, and so on. You can then tap it and choose a color. Add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool for each charge counter on it. This card has Commander written all over it. XXX is a little tough to take full advantage of in most constructed formats, but in Commander this thing can wreak havoc. You get to choose a different color every activation if you want. It's nuts, I love it. Pillar of War is 3 mana for an artifact creature golem with Defender and really cool artwork. As long as Pillar of War is enchanted, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. 3 mana for a 3/3 is okay and limited. It's nice that getting rid of its Defender isn't that difficult. It's okay. Acolyte's Reward is 2 mana for an instant. Prevent the next X damage that would be dealt to target creature this turn, where X is your devotion to white. If damage is prevented this way, Acolyte's Reward deals that much damage to target creature or player. This card is pretty good for white aggro against mono red. Even dealing with something like Mizzium Mortars, you get to save your most important creature and deal a bunch of damage. Not bad. Dawn to Dusk is 2 colorless and 2 white for a sorcery. Choose one or both. Return target enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand and or destroy target enchantment. With the amount of enchantments in Born of the Gods, this could be a bomb in Limited. It'd be difficult to build a deck without any enchantments in this upcoming draft format. Dawn to Dusk could end up giving you some serious value. Eidolon of Countless Battles is 1 colorless and 2 white for a 0/0 enchantment creature spirit with Bestow 4. The Eidolon or the creature it's enchanting gets +1/+1 for each creature you control and +1/+1 for each aura you control. What? This is insane. The bestow cost of this thing is extremely low for what it gives. There are going to be so many green-white and blue-white aggro decks with a large number of enchantment creatures and auras triggering heroic abilities. The value here is gross for the mana cost. If you can build a deck around triggering heroics with auras, this guy is an auto-include. Plus, who can forget about ethereal armor? Loyal Pegasus is 1 white mana for a 2/1 flyer. This flying horse can attack or block alone. That's pretty loyal. It's decent in an aggressive white deck in Limited. You don't need to be able to attack with this on turn 2 for it to be good. It has 2 power as a flyer. It's always going to be relevant in a draft game. The next card we're going to look at today is another Commander staple. Play for Guidance is 5 colorless and 1 white for a sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 enchantment cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. This is like a double idyllic tutor for double the mana. This is definitely going to see play in Commander, but its usefulness anywhere else is a bit shaky since 6 mana is a lot and sorcery speed doesn't do it any favors. Revoke Existence is back and stronger than ever. This sorcery costs 1 colorless and 1 white to exile target artifact or enchantment. When Scars of Mirrodin block was in Standard, this actually saw competitive play. There's no reason to think it won't be in a ton of sideboards this time around. It was good enough against just Theros. With Born of the Gods adding so many new enchantment creatures, gods, and auras, it just got a lot stronger. As a blue-white control player myself, pretty pumped about this reprint. This next card is an interesting one. Sunbond is 4 mana for an enchant creature aura. Enchanted creature has, whenever you gain life, put that many +1/+1 counters on this creature. I can't really tell if this is going to be good. It is 4 mana, which is tough, but if you can get an Ordeal of Heliod trigger off, that would be hilarious. I like the card in general, but its mana cost is what's making me feel hesitant. Crypsis is a 2 mana instant blue spell. What could go wrong? Target creature you control gains protection from creatures your opponents control until end of turn. Untap it. First, great Inspired Enabler. Second, great way to protect against aggro decks or delay the inevitable in your blue-black mill deck. Good for Limited, probably doesn't make the cut for Standard just because there are so many good blue cards already. Floodtide Serpent is 5 mana for a 4/4 sea snake. It can't attack unless you return an enchantment you control to its owner's hand. This is a fine Limited card. You get to bounce an aura if you want it on something else, or just trigger heroic again. It also survives Whelming Wave. Speaking of counters to Whelming Wave, Kraken of the Straits is a 7-mana 6/6 Kraken. Creatures with power less than the number of islands you control can't block Kraken of the Strait. Basically, this is unblockable except for gigantic things. Granted, if you get to the point in the game where you want to play 7-mana Kraken, something has gone terribly wrong. But he isn't the worst creature in the world. Kinda. He's a decent bomb if you manage to pull a blue heavy pool in Limited. Meletus Astronomer is 2 mana for a 1/3 with Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets him, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. As soon as I saw this card, it immediately reminded me of Augur of Bolas. Same cost, same power and toughness, and similar card draw effect. The 2 main differences being that you have to enable Heroic and it's only for an enchantment. This guy is fine for Limited. There are obviously a ton of enchantments in this block, and drafting a deck without any whatsoever would be pretty difficult. I can see this going into an aggressive blue-white creature strategy that needs the extra card draw. Not a bad card at all. Because you can never have enough counter spells, Nullify is 2 blue mana for an instant that counters target creature or aura spell. This is definitely a Limited card. One of the things holding it back is that it can't counter all enchantments, just auras. That being said, in the upcoming Limited environment, if you can manage to pull off 2 blue, this is a decent counter, and those that like drafting control decks will probably use one of these. Perplexing Chimera is exactly what it's named, perplexing. 5 mana gets you a 3/3 enchantment creature Chimera. When an opponent casts a spell, you may exchange control of Perplexing Chimera and that spell. If you do, you may choose new targets for the spell. I'm not even sure what to say here, honestly. For a second, let's just ignore the fact that this mythical beast can somehow exist in both the physical world and in the aether where spells are cast. Swapping a 3/3 around for spells is hysterical. Just imagine this in Commander. No one will want to play anything good. It's a weird version of Standstill. No one wants to trigger the awkward beast thing. Outside of Commander, I can't even tell if this will be decent in constructed or limited formats. I don't know. Sudden Storm is the new worst Frost Breath. For 4 mana at instant speed, you tap up to 2 target creatures. Those creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap steps, scry 1. The card is certainly limited playable. Being 1 more mana than Frost Breath does hurt a bit, but tapping is always strong in combat, especially when they stay tapped for a turn. In some cases, it'll act as a time walk for you to buy a turn or 2. For the record, this is one of my favorite cards in the set. Vortex Elemental is 1 blue mana for a 0/1 elemental. You can pay 1 blue mana and put it and each creature blocking or blocked by it on top of their owner's libraries, then those players shuffle their libraries. You can also pay 5 mana to force target creature to block it. This is amazing! 1 blue mana removal spell? This is a great way to get someone to stop attacking you with their giant creatures. It's 1 mana. So hilariously playable. Now considered my favorite creature type line, Black Oak of Odunis is 3 mana for a 0/5 zombie tree folk with Defender. It's an undead tree man. Could this get cooler? Right, abilities. You can pay 1 black mana and tap another untapped creature you control to give Black Oak +1/+1 until end of turn. This is a great card for that Phoenix Mill deck people are undoubtedly going to try to make. Even without that, it isn't bad in Limited. Decent wall with a relevant Inspired enabler. Eye Gouge. Cute. Is 1 black mana for an instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. If it's a Cyclops, destroy it. This is hilarious. Also, it destroys Polis Crusher. I think the most we can take from this card is that it means there will be more Cyclops. And that's cool. Next up is Fated Return. 4 colorless and 3 black for an instant. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains indestructible. If it's your turn, scry 2. Instant speed reanimation is always cool, even at 7 mana. Obviously, this isn't ideal for standard, and in limited it might be a little too expensive, but if you play it, it's nuts. Great for Commander, gets you back any creature, and lets you scry if you do it on your own turn. The Fated cards are just really good for Commander. Fellhide Brawler is a 2 mana man-cow bearable. Yes! Finally happened! 2-drop Minotaur! Woo! He's a 2/2 and can't block unless you control another Minotaur. But that's fine because why would you need to block? You're a Minotaur deck. You're bashing in over and over again until they bleed out or surrender. Man-cows! Gild is just a really cool concept. 3 of any and 1 black for a sorcery with a picture of a golden Pegasus on it. Exile target creature, put a colorless artifact token named Gold onto the battlefield. It has sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. This card is awesome. It gets rid of gods, it gives you some extra mana of any color when you need it, amazing for limited, and if any deck exists in standard after Born of the Gods comes out that is even remotely dependent on a god, this could see sideboard play. Very cool card. Marsh Mist Titan is a whopping 7 mana for a 4/5, but it costs X less to cast for X is your devotion to black. Amazing card for limited. I'd almost consider him a standard playable card if Mono Black Devotion wasn't already full of amazing creatures. Yes, he's just a 4/5 with no evasion, but when you could possibly get this guy out for 2 or 3 mana, it's worth it. This is underrated by a lot of people. Unfortunately, it probably won't see play outside of limited because black is just too strong. Servant of Timered is 2 colorless and 1 black for a 1/3 zombie with an inspired trigger. Whenever he becomes untapped, each opponent loses 1 life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. You can also pay 3 mana to regenerate him. This guy's okay. Doesn't do a whole lot, but he can take a little bit of a beating. In addition, the possibility of getting at least a little life can help you out a lot in the long run. This is a filler card for limited. Moving right along, we have Shrike Harpy. 3 colorless and 2 black gets you a 2/2 flyer with Tribute 2. When it enters the battlefield, if Tribute wasn't paid, target opponent sacrifices a creature. So we're either talking about a black air elemental or a 2/2 flyer with a Diabolic Edict. This card is fine for limited. 5 mana for a 2/2 isn't ideal, but the kill spell along with it gives value. If they don't have anything to sacrifice, a 4/4 flyer for 5 has always been great in limited. Well, that covers the first half of the spoilers today. We'll be back in just a little bit with the other half, so stay tuned for some awesome red, green, and multicolored cards. Up to this point, how are you guys feeling about this set? Has today's spoilers changed your mind at all? Leave your comments below and we'll have a discussion about it. As always, subscribe for the latest and most reliable Born of the Gods spoiler information you could ever need. This is the Mana Source. I'm Wedge. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.